few animals in the wild natural world have a persistent, tough-skinned bad reputation stuck to their names. A typical example is the shark, an underwater, cold-blooded monstrosity with way too much lacerated teeth in its skull than necessary. It is a lunatic, rampant homicidal maniac that has a profound and insatiable craving for human flesh, a killer always in the making. Or at least that's what we tend to believe, perhaps because a vast array of pop culture references leads us to assume as much. Or perhaps because their faces don't exactly inspire hospitality, charity and good companionship. Understandable really, I mean look at the man, how safe do you really feel right now? But truthfully, their reputation as ruthless predators is blown way out of proportion. In reality, they tend to be shy and to avoid humans. We, however, the most intelligent species on the entire planet, illuminated by a peculiar sense of genius, keep insisting that it is an excellent idea to ride on a piece of wood in their environment. In contrast, there are some animals that are orders of magnitude more dangerous and deadly than we think they are. One of them, the main protagonist of this video, a wild, Machiavellian, sadistic, pathological psychopath from the African savannah. It is neurotic, willful, argumentative, and has a OCD-scale preoccupation for territorial domination. Its personality profile is a nightmare, yes, but that's not all. Its physical attributes makes it capable to back it up with tremendous violence. It weighs 3 tons, packed in a 5 meters long body and bullies lions and crocodiles for a living. Ladies and gentlemen, the hippopotamus. Today's story is a true story, and it is all about how a group of 3 hippos caused a major national problem in Colombia. Before we start, please make sure to smash the like button. It costs nothing, but it is the greatest way to support the channel and help me create entertaining and educational videos for you in the future. Anyhow, let's dive in. As stated earlier, a small group of 3 hippos ended up being a colossal problem for the Colombian nation. Considering that they're originally from the African savannah, how did they find themselves in South America in the first place? It all started with a chain of events set up by a certain gentleman named Pablo Escobar. That name must mean something to you, granted that you haven't been living under the proverbial rock for the past few decades and plan to keep at it for the foreseeable future. In the 1980s, said gentleman created a blood-soaked, powerful empire in his ranch, the Hacienda Nápoles in Colombia. The founding stone of that not-so-legal organization is a certain white, flowery powder whose name will fail to be mentioned for algorithmic reasons. For the time being, let's call it sugar. Within the 1980s, sugar was a coveted substance in Colombia. Good thing for good old Escobar, considering that he had deep connections with the best pastry shops in the neighboring countries of Peru and Bolivia. He and his cronies conspired to produce massive infrastructures of sugar, manufacturing, transportation and distribution within the country. The little parasitic powdery concoction was an enormous success, I imagine, considering that it shoved an approximate $25 billion down the baron's wallet. It was during these times that Escobar acquired the gigantic prime-cut state-of-the-art fine piece of real estate, the Hacienda Nápoles, a 2,800-hectare landmass bought for the modest sum of $63 million. You could find inside it a set of artificial lakes, tennis courts, a private landing airstrip. Impressive, yes, but the extravagance of all of those parts of the land was perhaps completely overshadowed by the last one, a private zoo, featuring a wide variety of exotic animals, giraffes, camels, elephants, kangaroos, and the most psychotic, dangerous, and maniacally driven, the hippo. 3 of them to be precise, 2 females and 1 male. Many among the wild animals were brought from overseas. In the process, I'm sure must have been a logistical nightmare. An intelligent and shrewd man, Escobar knew only too well that money alone could not secure access to the highest echelons of Colombian society, which is arguably why he sponsored various projects to help the destitute and underprivileged. By some estimates, he may have offered in the ballpark of $300 million to a wide variety of philanthropic organizations. Predictably, he gained over time tremendous moral credibility while his generous and very public donations put the lights off his massive criminal enterprises. In 1991, however, the proverbial chicken came home to roost, and he was eventually arrested. At that point, Pablo Escobar had to look himself in the mirror and pay the price for his actions. As a penance to all the crimes he committed, all the graveyards he filled, he was sentenced to an extremely harsh punishment when they imprisoned him in a luxurious custom-built jail named La Catedral, having inside a nightclub, sauna, basketball courts, telephones, computers, fax machines, and complete autonomy within the walls walls of the jail. Oh yeah, that'll show him. The question is this: how would Escobar handle a lifetime behind bars? I guess he'll never know because he escaped the year following his incarceration. In 1993, about a year later, he was faced by the Colombian justice forces and died from the confrontation. And there was the end of the most renowned sugar producer in the world. Now, back to his zoo, in the infamous Hacienda Nápoles. Now that the estate's owner passed, the animals were handed away to zoos around the country. The giraffes, camels, and other animals were welcomed with arms wide open, all except for the hippos. Not really hard to understand why, when you take 2 seconds to understand the fact that hippos are nearly impossible to cooperate with, and are among the most aggressive animals roaming around the face of the planet. They kill up to 1,500 humans on a yearly basis. Every year, the belligerent mania kills more humans than lions, wolves, sharks, bees, jellyfish, tigers, grizzly bears combined. And they're vegetarians, so they don't have much of an incentive to be such a mental threat to people, and yet they would devote a considerable amount of enthusiasm in turning your life into a tragedy. Considering that they were unwanted, they were left to fend off for themselves in the wild, and that they did. At first, the beasts were not much of an issue, but remember, there were 3, 2 females and 1 male. And considering that you cannot count on them to not touch each other, they showed a magic trick to the entire world. There were 3 at first, but lo and behold, by 2020, there were 90, which was a problem of disproportionate scales. Hippos will die before they stop being compulsively territorial. They barely tolerate each other, let alone a human horsing around their neighborhood and sometimes having the curious idea of taking a selfie with the serial murderer. The hippos also ended up being an ecological catastrophe because they kept spreading around their faces all around the rivers. And they will not stop, even if you beg them to. This caused the rapid proliferation of badweed and alga. They are territorial, yes, but that doesn't mean that they will respect the privacy of your territory. They were routinely breaching private properties, flattening farm animals, and at times caused car accidents. They would probably be fine afterward, but your car will need serious therapy. On top of the water contamination debacle, each one of them would also eat 110 pounds of grass every single day. By 2023, they performed another unsolicited magic trick. This time, they went up to nearly 200. Naturally, the authorities decided that they had enough with the proliferation. The question was this: how would they get rid of the animals? The answer was to recruit the Neotropical Wildlife Foundation to track, eliminate, and ensure the disposal of the hippos. Costly process of $9,000 per head. Only 1 hippo was eliminated on July 26, which triggered an intense public outrage. A great number of activists in Bogota protested against animal mistreatments. This attracted international attention to the situation, and the authorities, in an effort to maintain or repair their reputation, were compelled to find other ways to handle their wild animal conundrum. What other alternatives did they have? One was to euthanize, a quite expensive process of $39,000 per head, and not really the best alternative to improve national reputation. Another was to displace the animals into a common area, an even more expensive logistical quagmire of $50,000 per head. And yet another one was to set up large groups of experts to track, mobilize, and sterilize. Still a hard, costly process. Each hippo would in this case require the mobilization of 8 experts, veterinarians, technicians on the government's payroll for about 7 hours. The one plan that seemed to be unreasonable even to contemplate was to do nothing. The exotic beasts multiplied at a compounded fast rate. 2032, they're estimated to reach 230. By 2050, 1,000. Not by any stretch of the imagination, an easy issue to resolve. Let me know what you think. What would be an ethical and efficient way to handle this national crisis?